The prairie stretches unbroken beneath a sky the color of steel. Snow lies 3 feet deep across fields where trees are scarce, scattered willows in the creek beds, perhaps a cottonwood grove a day's walk away. The thermometer, if one existed here 2 centuries ago, would read 40 below zero. 40 below, where exposed skin freezes in minutes, where breath hangs in the air like smoke. And yet, people lived here. Not merely survived, thrived, raised children, preserved knowledge across generations. They did so without furnaces, without fiberglass insulation, and often without the endless supply of firewood we imagine essential to winter survival. The question isn't romantic, it's architectural. How do you keep a human body alive when fuel is limited and the cold is absolute? The answer, refined over thousands of years, rests on a principle modern building science is only now rediscovering. Survival depends less on generating heat than on refusing to let it escape. Heat moves in 3 ways: radiation, conduction, and convection. A fire radiates warmth outward. Your body conducts heat into cold ground beneath you. And convection, moving air, steals warmth faster than almost anything else. Stand in still air at 20 degrees and you might feel uncomfortable. Stand in a 20-mile-per wind at the same temperature, and frostbite becomes a real threat within the hour. The peoples who lived where wood was precious understood this not through equations, but through observation. They knew that trapping still air close to the skin, close to the body, close to the dwelling, was the first line of defense. Air itself, when motionless, is one of nature's finest insulators. The goal wasn't to burn hotter or longer. The goal was to build a fortress of stillness, layer upon layer of dead air pockets that heat couldn't escape through. More fire isn't always the answer. Sometimes the answer is simply refusing to let the fire's work go to waste. That shift in thinking changes everything. Walk through a wetland in late autumn and you'll find cattails, their seed heads splitting open to release clouds of white fluff. Each fiber is finer than thread, and when gathered in quantity, it behaves like down, compressible, lightweight, astonishingly good at trapping air. Dry prairie grasses, bundled or woven into mats, serve the same purpose. Sphagnum moss from the forest floor, when dried, becomes spongy insulation that also wicks moisture away from living spaces. Bison hides, elk hides, caribou skins, each one a windproof membrane. The outer hair sheds water and snow. The inner layer, soft and dense, holds warmth close. But moisture is the silent enemy. Wet insulation conducts heat 30 times faster than dry. So hides are smoked, grasses are stored off the ground, and dwellings are designed with subtle ventilation just enough to let water vapor escape without creating a gale. The materials aren't exotic. They're what the land offers. The genius lies in knowing which ones breathe, which ones block wind, and how to layer them so each does its job without fighting the others. The shelter begins here, in the hands of someone reading the marsh and the hillside like a blueprint. Snow is frozen water, yes, but it's also 90% air. Those air pockets, locked between ice crystals, make snow an insulator. An igloo in the Arctic proves the point. Inside temperatures can be 40 degrees warmer than outside, even without a flame. Where snow piles deep, communities learn to use it. Berms of snow banked against the lower walls of a dwelling seal the gap where cold air would otherwise seep in from below. Drifts are shaped, not fought. A north-facing entrance might be blocked entirely by strategic snowfall, forcing entry from the lee side where wind doesn't howl. Beneath the snow, the earth itself offers stability. Soil 6 feet down stays near 50 degrees year-round in much of North America, cold to the touch, but far warmer than the air above in deep winter. Semi-subterranean lodges, their floors dug a few feet into the ground, tap into this thermal mass. The earth doesn't give much heat, but it doesn't steal it either. It holds steady, and in a winter where every degree counts, steady is survival. The land becomes part of the architecture. Picture a cone of poles rising 15 feet into the air, lashed at the apex, their bases spread in a circle on the ground. Over this frame, hides sewn together, tailored to fit the curve. The shape isn't accidental. Wind slides up and around a cone far more smoothly than it batters a flat wall. There's less turbulence, less suction, less structural stress. But the real subtlety lies inside. A second liner hangs a foot inward from the outer shell, creating an air gap, a buffer zone where cold radiating off the exterior hide is absorbed before it reaches the living space. The gap also allows a gentle upward draw of air, pulling smoke from the fire toward the adjustable opening at the top. Flaps on poles let the occupants steer the vent away from the wind, preventing backdrafts. On calm nights, the vent narrows to hold heat in. The fire itself is small, no roaring blaze, just a modest collection of coals. The structure does the rest. Heat rises and stratifies. Sleepers on raised platforms rest in the warmest layer. The floor stays cold, but nobody sleeps there. Every element answers a question. Every question has been asked 1,000 times. Where communities were more settled, where winter lasted 6 months, architecture scaled up. Long rectangular structures, sometimes 100 feet end to end, housed multiple families under one roof. The logic: shared warmth. 10 bodies generate more heat than one. And in an enclosed space, that heat accumulates. Multiple hearths run down the center line, each tended by a family group, but the smoke rises to a common roof vent. Sleeping platforms line the walls, raised 4 feet off the ground. Cold air, being denser, sinks. The floor is a river of chill, but up on the platform, wrapped in furs and woven mats, sleepers rest in a pocket of relative warmth. Storage occupies the coldest zones: dried corn, tools, things that won't suffer from the chill. The entrance is often a double-door system, a small vestibule that prevents wind from blowing straight into the living area. Think of it as an airlock. One door closes before the other opens. The design isn't just about size. It's about choreography, how people move, where heat pools, how the building breathes. Every longhouse is a lesson in thermodynamics made of bark and saplings. A garment is a portable microclimate. The principle is layering. An inner layer against the skin, an insulating middle, an outer shell to block wind and shed moisture. Animal hides serve all 3 roles depending on how they're prepared and where they're placed. A soft doe-skin tunic breathes. An outer robe of thick bison fur stops the wind cold. Between them, air is trapped again, that crucial still air. Mittens, not gloves. Fingers together generate more warmth than fingers separated. Footwear is critical. Feet sweat even in deep cold, and wet feet freeze. So moccasins are lined with grasses or cattail down, which wick moisture and insulate simultaneously. Socks, when used, are loose compression cuts, circulation, and circulation is warmth. A hood channels breath away from the face, but keeps the skull wrapped. 80% of body heat isn't lost through the head, but the head is densely vascularized and feels cold quickly. Comfort matters for morale. Morale matters for survival. The clothes aren't costume, they're engineering. And they're adjusted throughout the day as exertion and temperature shift. Static solutions fail, adaptive ones endure. On the plains, where trees are sparse, people burned what the land provided, dried bison dung. The chips, when thoroughly desiccated, burn slow and hot with little smoke. They don't crackle like wood. They don't throw sparks. They smolder, radiating steady warmth for hours. There's no romance in this, but there's profound practicality. A small fire of chips, carefully fed, can heat a dwelling all night without depleting precious deadwood reserves. Stones, too, become tools. River cobbles heated in a fire and placed in a hide-lined pit continue radiating warmth long after the flames die. Water poured over the stones in an enclosed space creates steam, a sweat lodge, yes, but also a rapid, intense heat source for warming bodies chilled to the bone. Thermal mass is the concept. Heat stored in dense material releases slowly. The fire is an event, the stone is a battery, and when fuel is scarce, that stored heat becomes currency. The ecosystem dictates the toolkit, and the toolkit is never static. Adaptation is constant, invisible, elegant. Imagine stepping inside just before dusk. The fire has been burning low all afternoon, tended by someone who stayed behind. You enter through the vestibule, closing the outer flap before opening the inner one. No gust of wind reaches the fire. Your outer garments, damp with snow, are hung near the warmth to dry, but not close enough to scorch. The sleeping platform is already piled with hides. Beneath them, heated stones wrapped in leather placed there an hour ago. The bed will be warm when you lie down. Coals in the central hearth are banked with ash, slowing their burn to a crawl. They'll hold heat until morning, when a few breaths and a handful of kindling will coax them back to flame. Food is stored in the coldest corner, a natural refrigerator. Water sits in a hide bag near the fire, kept just above freezing. Every object has a place determined by temperature zones within the space. Height, distance from the hearth, proximity to the entry, it's all mapped in muscle memory. The dwelling isn't a static container. It's a dynamic system, adjusted hour by hour. The people who lived this way didn't think about thermal zones. They felt them. They moved through them. They survived because the space worked with them, not against them. There is no single invention here, no magic material. What we're seeing is an integrated system architecture designed to shed wind and trap air, materials chosen to insulate without collecting moisture, social structures that pool body heat and share labor, clothing that adapts to exertion and stillness, fuel sources matched to availability, and daily routines choreographed to conserve every hard-won calorie of warmth. It's the opposite of brute force. It's efficiency born from necessity and observation. Modern building science talks about thermal envelopes, vapor barriers, passive solar design. Indigenous cold climate dwellings embodied those principles centuries before they had names. We're taught to think of survival as rugged individualism, but these systems required cooperation, sharing space, sharing warmth, sharing knowledge across generations. The methods weren't written down. They were lived, tested, refined, and passed along in the way a fire is banked at night and rekindled at dawn. Today, as we confront questions of energy use and resilience, there's something here worth examining. Not to replicate context matters, but to understand, the land offers clues. The question is whether we're still listening. If you were building a shelter in a place where fuel was scarce and winter unforgiving, what's the first principle you'd design around trapping warmth, blocking wind, or managing moisture? Drop your thought below. And if this kind of quietly relentless human ingenuity speaks to you, subscribe. We're just getting started.